Welcome everyone to this week's edition of Tuesday Talk, where we talk everything to do with designing, developing, and deploying a superb learning experience, where we talk about how we can get the content out of your head and create an online course that's going to give you impact, that's going to give you the ability to share your knowledge and also create the lifestyle that you love. So this week, as you can see, the topic is you don't put dot points on a billboard. And you're probably looking at this topic and going, what is this about? What is this? Well, it's a couple of different things actually sort of combined together. The first thing is, when we talk about you don't put dot points on a billboard, is really this notion that I want to get across to people of when you're looking at building a course, when you're looking at getting your knowledge out of your head and trying to create an experience that's going to be engaging, is to look at what other people and more importantly, what other industries are doing. So often I see people creating courses, and this is back when I was, developing, courses for large corporates, and even now when we're helping, coaches and consultants to take their knowledge out of their head. Quite often we see people looking at other courses and going, okay, well, that's what they've done, that's what I'm going to do, and copying that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that what they're copying is the best thing. We see so many people out there, course creators, you can call them course creators. They've probably created a course. They're probably an entrepreneur who's created one course, it's been successful, and he's going to go and teach everyone else how to do it. Probably doesn't actually have, a background in learning design like me and the Superb Learning team do. And as a result, while they might have had success in their course, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to result and generate success in others. And what they did is not necessarily best practice. Quite often we see a lot of people and just go, let's create video, just do video course. And now video is a great medium, but it's not the only medium. And certainly one of the big things is to look at, well, what other industries are doing stuff. What other industries are out there and doing things to engage people. And one of the industries that's the closest to the training industry is the marketing industry. You go and have a look at what's been happening in marketing. Now, certainly they use video, but they use a whole range of other visual medium to engage with people. And coming back to the headline of today's talk, you don't put dot points on a billboard, or you don't see dot points on a billboard. Okay, because marketing understands that it needs to be visual. And certainly when we want to engage people, when we want to engage people in a course, then we can also be looking at, well, what's marketing doing? Because when we look at the objective of marketing is they want you to pay attention and they want you to change your behavior. Now, in most cases, that's change your buying behavior. But if we think about creating a course, creating some educational content, there's two things that we want to do. One is we want to get people's attention so that they pay attention to the information we're providing them. We also want to change a behavior. Okay, there's probably a reason why they're not achieving the goals, why they're not doing the thing that we're teaching them, and that's probably because the behaviors aren't right. Now, marketing's trying to change a buying behavior. Building a course, we're looking at trying to change a performance behavior. So certainly one of the big things we can do is look outside at other industries and see what they're doing. So look at what marketing does. And as I said, marketing is really big. And the big thing they do is really good, high quality visuals. So that brings me to my second part of what I want to talk about, is really around how can we actually use visuals effectively so that we can engage our audience. Because the reality is that visuals connect with our emotions. Okay, we've got our lizard brain, which is our old and ancient brain, and it works on basically the three F's. Food, fear, fornication. It's, can I eat it? Will it eat me? Or can I make love to it? And it's those three things that drive the lizard brain, and it drives our emotions. And visuals really connect in with that lizard brain. Something catches their eye, and immediately they're thinking, can I eat it? Will it eat me? Can I make love to it? Is there Is there a benefit? Is there a danger? Or is there, a good experience, a good feeling as a result of it? So we really need to think about how we can actually tap into that lizard brain, and visuals is the big key thing. If we look at the lizard brain, it's the subconscious, it's the emotional brain, it's the most dominant brain. It's always on and it's automatic. And we're looking at 11, probably around 11 million bits of data that it's absorbing every second. Whereas our conscious brain is obviously the much logical, newer brain. It's weaker. It gets tired more easily. It's not automatic, and it's only absorbing 40 bits a second, 40 bits of data per second. So we're trying to create a course. We're trying to change a behavior through the information that we're providing. We're creating a learning experience for people. And if we want to create a learning experience that is going to be engaging and it's actually going to have impact that people are going to remember, then we need to think about, do we want to be using visuals or using methods that are going to tap into our conscious brain, our weaker brain, our brain that's going to tire easily and not retain as much information, our brain that can't absorb a huge amount of data? Or do we tap into our subconscious brain, our emotional brain, the one that's always on, that's automatic and can accept a huge amount more data? And I think the answer is yes, we want to tap into that lizard brain. We want to really tap into having quality visuals so that we can engage people as part of that learning experience that we create. And it goes back to that saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. If you're thinking about, we're trying to create meaning and trying to convey meaning, or or trying to explain things, and if we can do it with a picture, then it's going to be a lot better than just providing information via text or via audio. So basically, we want to trigger emotions to change behavior, and so we need to look at how we can actually use the visuals to do that. So how do we use that? How do we use visuals? So there's probably 4 key things that we can look at where we're going to be using visuals. Okay, when we're creating our content, we're going, how can we use visuals? Okay, one of it is, can we use visuals for clarity? Okay, is there a way that we can provide a visual that will provide a much clearer message to people, as opposed to providing a rather than providing a text or audio or some other thing that's happened there. Okay, so if you're thinking about infographics, okay, people love infographics. And why? Because it allows you to provide much more clarity around some of that information, as opposed to just a huge table full of data. The other one we can look at with visuals is looking at, well, does it provide a connection? So can we use a visual to connect elements together? Now, a couple of weeks ago, when Tuesday talked, we were talking about visual models. And visual models really tie into that, obviously providing some clarity, but they also allow to provide some of that connection. Okay, you can go, okay, well, here's a visual model. This is our process, or this is our answers model. This is our target model, whatever model it is. But with that model, it allows for some connections to be applied. People can look at the model and go, right, this is where I am in this process. This is where I'm going. This is where I need, these are the steps that I need to go along. Or this is where I've been. This is where I am right now. And these are the steps that I need to get to continue to get the results that I want. So looking at, can we actually create visuals to allow for that connection that's there? Okay. The other way we can look at that is looking at visuals that are concise, that can deliver a message very quickly. Okay. Great example of this is, street signs and warning signs. Okay. quite quickly and clearly we can see a stop sign, we see a give way sign, we can see a warning sign, very clear, very visual, that provides that information in a very concise way. Makes us stop. We go, oh, lizard brain's going, oh, hang on, this could hurt me. I need to stop and think about it. The same in our courses. We can look at, can we actually provide visuals to add that a level of concisement that we can deliver the message very, very quickly. So think about that. And then the other one is then, well, can visuals be used to complement? Okay, so we might have some text or audio, it might be an animation, for example, okay, and we've got the key message that we're providing in that animation is possibly the voiceover. It's possibly that what the narrator is saying, but we can complement that with some visuals through that animation, or it could be text and images on a page. There's a whole range of different ways, but looking at providing visuals to then complement what we're doing. Okay. And that again helps with that retention of information. So thinking about visuals, thinking about, can I use them to provide clarity, to provide connection, to be very concise in the message that I'm trying to convey, or can I use it to complement the message that I'm looking to convey? And then when we're doing that, we also need to think about some of the visual design principles. So there's some really cool visual design principles that we can put into place. And when we're talking about the visual design principles, we're talking about any sort of visuals. So this could be a video, it could be an animation, animated video, it could be an infographic, it could be a photo, it could be a hand-drawn or graphically designed vector image that's been created. There's a whole range of different things. It could be a chart or a graph, infographics. So there's a whole range of different visuals that we can consider as a way of doing that. But when we do that, we need to consider all the different principles that should be applied. Obviously, one of those is looking at color and looking at, well, what message is the color providing? But also, is the color that you're using, is it complementing or contrasting with other elements on the page? And certainly we want to, if we really want to convey a message and we want it to be concise, we probably want to use a contrasting image. Again, coming back to, the warning signs, they're yellow and they're red, probably because they really contrast quite well with a lot of things in our environment. So think about the color that you're providing. You also want to make sure that you're using color that is not too contrasting with the background. So, you wouldn't use, a light pink on a light pink text or something on a white background. It's not going to pass the accessibility guidelines, is because there's not enough contrast between the foreground and the background. But also, think about the psychology of color and think about, there's a whole lot of stuff that you can do, much more than I'm going to get into in today's Tuesday talk. But think about, what does the psychology of color say? Certainly there's a lot of stuff around, red being an action type color. But then there's also stuff that talks about green. If you're looking at a button, do you make it red or green? Red can convey the message of action, but red also does mean stop. Green means go. So depending on the message you want to convey. But certainly there's it's a huge amount of information out there around different colors and the psychology of color and the emotions that they portray. So certainly thinking about those when you're building color into your learning experience, when you're building it into your course, think about what are the emotions that's connecting with. What's the emotional connection with the color? And what's that going to have? What impact is that going to have on the engagement? Also, when we think about graphics, could just be the text or the typography. Okay. And certainly looking at the whole different things that we can apply with typography and having different fonts to allow for that contrast and for things to be able to stand out. When we're writing content and we have headlines and things like that, we want it to be bold, we want it to be noticeable, we want it to attract people's attention. So thinking about how does your typography, how does your fonts, etc., work to do that. Then think about videos. Okay, as I said, lots and lots of people are just creating video-only courses, and video is a great medium, but it's not the only medium. Okay, but certainly thinking about how you're coming across on videos, thinking about your lighting, thinking about the backgrounds, the noise, the placement of you and everything else in that video, and what are the visuals that it's providing when you're creating a video. And if it's not a video, if it's not a talking head video, what are the other visuals? So you might be doing a presentation video where you've got a PowerPoint on screen or some sort of other slide-based thing. Again, what are the visuals that you're putting into that? What are those visuals going? What is the message they're providing? Again, is it there to complement what you're saying? It probably should be. You probably shouldn't be having a PowerPoint that's giving all the information that's just duplicating what you're saying. It's going to be redundant. So thinking about the visuals that you do with videos and things like that. And the other one as well, while it's not associated with visuals, is the audio. And certainly what we're seeing is that audio is probably more important than video. If people, if you've got a bad video, people will probably be a little bit forgiving. You've got bad audio and they can't hear what you're going to say, they switch off and they're gone. So certainly think about that when you're creating videos and things. Make sure your audio is good. And then also think about white space. So often we see people and they're putting these designs together and everything's just crammed together. But white space is your friend, okay? White space really allows for you to make things stand out and to have a nicer view and make it easier for people to read and consume the information if it's not all jammed together in one big lump. Think about how you can use white space along the edges, the top and the bottom of your screen, but also in between different pieces. So think about how you use that. And obviously too much white space is not good, but certainly you want to have white space as a way to provide contrast and alignment. Which brings me to the CRAP design principles. So these are 4 principles that you can look at some of these things when you're doing your typography, when you're doing your videos, when you're doing your images, photos, graphics, whatever they might be, and think about these CRAP design principles, thinking about what they are, which is basically contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. So really it's around contrast and looking at how you can use elements on the page to provide a contrast. So where you can use large text to make things stand out, or bold text, or a different font. So looking at how you can use each of those elements. And again, so this is where we're looking at typography, putting a contrast in the fonts that we're using to provide a visual element. Okay. Obviously, with all of these things, provide especially different fonts. Different fonts can provide contrast, but you don't want to go overboard. You probably only want to stick with 2 fonts. You don't want to go, let's do 6 fonts. That's just going to be a bit weird and going to make it look too unusual. So certainly looking at, using a small amount. And again, color is another one. We can use color to allow things to provide contrast. But again, we don't want to get so fancy with the color that it's not real good. And then we want to look at contrast in terms of contrasting images that are going to attract and draw our eye to an element on the page. Maybe there's some key elements we want to explain. And we want to do that. So, put together some visuals that are going to really attract people into and to that key message that you want to provide. So looking at providing those elements for contrast. The other part of the CRAP design principles is repetition. Okay, so this is where we want to repeat common elements. Okay, and it's often a mistake that we often see and results in this dull design where people mix up their elements. Okay, and got a, where you go, okay, I'm going to use photo this one, I'm going to use a graphic in this one, and I'm going to use this and that. And I know I've done it in this presentation to show you the differences. But certainly look at repeating those common elements, being consistent with your coloring. So if you've got brand coloring, bring that all the way through and add that level of consistency. So you're repeating those common elements. If you've got maybe it's an online course and you've got buttons, and your buttons are going to be in the same place each time. If you've got action items you want them to do, well, then they're going to be in the same color, the same place all the time. Repeating those obviously common elements. And also looking at what are the common elements that are out there that already exist. Okay, hyperlinks is a great classic. Okay, hyperlinks should be blue. They should be blue and underlined. And often we've seen some people that go, I'm going to make my hyperlinks pink or green because that's what our corporate colors are. Okay, and it really leads to this problem because people go, right, I can see this thing, it's green and it's underlined. I think it's a hyperlink, but I'm not quite sure. And it leads me to my second point there. There's a great book by a guy called Steve Krug. Now, he wrote a lot of this stuff based on user experience, not on learning design. But there's, again, some common elements between user experience and learning design. And his book is all about Don't Make Me Think. And it's all about this concept of people should be able to look at content, should be able to look at a web page or some sort of digital content, and they don't have to think about how do I interact with this content. They don't have to think about, okay, how do I move from this page to another page? How do I interact with this? How do I play the video? How do I click on this hyperlink? Is this a hyperlink? So all of those things, and it's the whole premise of this book is Don't Make Me Think, and it's very much around this concept of having those common elements and having things so people can look at it and go, yep, I know that bit of text there, it's blue and it's underlined. I know if I click on it, it's probably going to take me to another site or another page. It's going to jump me somewhere. Okay, so your corporate colors might be royal blue. Well, you certainly don't want to make your headings royal blue with underline because people are going to think they're a hyperlink and they're going to click on it and it's not going to work, and they're going to click on it and it's not going to work, and they're going to click on it, it's not going to work, and they're going to get frustrated and they're going to go, this course is shit, and they're going to walk away or switch off. Okay, so really think about those common elements, and you want to think about the experience. Okay, because it's not just about designing for what people need to know. We need to be designing for how people will also feel. We need to design for the experience that we're creating. And if we create an experience that's going to be frustrating, then that's going to have an impact. It's going to have an impact on their emotions. It's going to impact on the lizard brain, and it's going to impact on how much they enjoy the course and how much they're going to retain that information. Okay, so thinking about that repetition, common elements that make people comfortable and don't have to think. Also then thinking about alignment, okay, and we see some pages, and this is probably an example where we look at marketing and go, oh, marketing does it a lot, I don't like it. And one of the things they quite often do is you quite often see these long form landing pages, and a lot of the content is all center aligned. Now, certainly center aligning pieces that you want to really call out, you want to add some contrast, maybe 2 or 3 lines of text is great, but you certainly wouldn't want to center align everything. And as you can see on that example there, center aligning dot points and they're all out of whack. Whereas, having a good alignment, having everything left aligned is certainly going to provide a much better visual for the content you're providing. Also, we see quite often university papers or academic writings will put stuff and they will make it fully justified. So that means that the alignment on the left and the alignment on the right, it's all nice straight lines all down the side. There's none of this in and out text on the right hand side. like we can see there with those dot points, okay? And that's meant to make it look really nice and things. But that also does pose problems, okay? When we fully justify content, it will put different spacing between words. So one word might have a different size spacing to another, but if it needs to, it will also put different spacing between the letters. So you might have a word that's got different spacing between its letters than another word does. And what has been research has found is this actually has an impact for those people that have reading difficulties, that have dyslexia and things like that. Content that is fully justified makes it very hard for them to read because of the variations in the spacings that happen between the letters and the words. So basically alignment, think about, can you make it left aligned? Unless it's a small bit of text, you want to draw some contrast to it, then maybe you can sort of, center align it. And then thinking about the last one is then thinking about proximity. And think about the proximity between pieces of content. Or maybe it's also the proximity between content and an image. And you can see here we've got bad, where everything's sort of jammed up. Okay, and I talked before about white space being a friend, whereas on the good example, you can see there's a nice bit of white space before the subheading. And you can see that it's much easier to read, and I can see that, yes, visually I can quite easily look at this content, and there's a connection between contrast, and I can see there's a connection between repetition and that content that's there. I can see that there's an easy connection between the alignment, and those pieces of visual content. So thinking about how you can actually provide that proximity to group like things together, use some white space to space them apart from others, and that's going to help with, again, that visual design and bringing those things together. And then the other thing as well is then looking at how you can make things simple. Going back a few years, I could always tell the people that had just discovered, smart art in PowerPoint or animations in PowerPoint because their PowerPoints were full of them. And it was like, whoa, hang on, this is not real good. And we still see these things happening. But certainly with this one, looking at the simplicity, someone's trying to be a little bit fancy with this. Whereas if we actually go with something like this, well, we can see it's a lot simpler. And as a result of it being a lot simpler, it's a lot easier to understand. And it's a lot easier to engage with and understand what this is trying to say. Okay. But we can be even simpler. Okay. So again, coming back to that idea of proximity. Okay. If I go back to this one, okay, I can look at this graph, and I've still got to think a bit. There's still a bit of thinking for me to do. I've got to go, okay, red. Okay, red. It's not a real big bit of pie. What does red mean? I've got to then look down the bottom, and it goes, okay, that's sweets, right? Okay. Oh, the big bit of pie is the dark blue. What is that? Oh, okay, it's grains. Okay. So there's still this element of me needing to think. Whereas here, I can actually really quickly and easily, very simply look at this information and retain this information very quickly. And I can look at it and go, okay, the red is sweet 7%, meat and dairy 19%, very quickly. So looking at those three, you can see that this one, very simple, and brings in the idea of proximity and gives us a great way of conveying information. But it might be a little bit dull. So maybe we can look at going, okay, well, could we actually do things? And this is where we can actually then look at going, okay, can we make it more visual? Can we create an infographic that, again, colors, fonts, doing different things, and we draw people in, and people are more engaged and actually going to read them. And coming back to, you don't see dot points on a billboard. Marketing, we're a big one to first start using infographics. And from a learning point of view, they're really valuable because they really do convey some great information. So another thing that we can borrow from marketing and do some of those pieces. So very much, looking at those CRAP design principles, making sure that there's appropriate contrast, that we're repeating common elements, that we're using appropriate alignment, and that there's a good level of proximity between like items, whether that being heading and base font or images and headings and things like that. and then looking at how do we make it simple and how do we make it visual. So that was the little Tuesday talk that I wanted to do, just coming to the end of the half hour, on you don't see dot points on a billboard and why we need to look at other industries such as marketing for ideas on how we can create things that are going to be more engaging, especially with our visuals. So thank you for anyone who is tuning in, for those that are watching on Facebook or in our Entrepreneur Hub Facebook group, or if you're watching it on YouTube or tuning in on LinkedIn, thank you very much. As per usual, now just going to open it up if we've got anyone that wants to ask any questions live. If you don't, not a problem. But certainly if you're watching this or you're watching the recording or you come back to it and you have a think later, type your questions into the chat, whether that be on YouTube. We're using Restream and streaming to YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Can't forget Twitter. So any questions you've got, if it's watching the live or watching the recording, just drop it in to the chat. Thank you. Any questions? While I'm waiting for questions as well, for anyone that is interested in a little bit more information around visual design, you can jump on. So the link there, bit.ly superb visual, jump on and you can grab our free ebook, 6 visual design tips when building your online course, or you can just go straight to our website. Under library, you'll see that and a range of other ebooks that we've got available that you can click and download. So certainly, if you want a little bit more information there around, visual design tips is certainly one of them we've got. As I said, we've got a range of other ebooks that are free for you to download, access, and learn a little bit more around how you can design, develop, and deliver a superb learning experience, how you can get the knowledge out of your head to create an impactful and profitable online course. So thank you. I'm not seeing if we've got any questions coming through. Got one comment. Thank you very much. Great session. Great to hear. If we've got no other comments, then we might wrap it up for this week's Tuesday talk. We're here every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, not daylight savings time. Up here in Queensland, Queenslanders don't believe in it. So if you're in the southern states, it's 2 p.m. If you're watching from anywhere else outside of Australia, it's Australian Eastern Standard Time. Every Tuesday, 1 p.m. We'll look forward to catching you next week on our Tuesday talk.